much. All right, but let's kick this off. So the top three things we talked last week, and we had spoke a little bit about the biggest things that dealers are facing today. First, why don't you tell people who you are and what you do a little bit?
Yeah, I love that. All right. Sure, totally. So thank you guys for tuning in. We've got a few people here, and I know that we're going to get some more going down the road, but my name is David Bradley, sales and marketing manager with Grant Cardone. I've been working with Grant for the last 7 years. I work from home. This is my home office. Grant's training took me in 2003 from barely surviving as a sales professional to thriving in it. In 2011, I jumped at the opportunity to come and give Grant's knowledge and expertise to other people. And so, right out of Grant's book, Sell or Be Sold, I'm not in the sales training business. I was never in the car business. I learned that I'm in the people business first. And so for the last 7 years, I've been giving people Grant's content. And as a result of that, they've been able to, I've realized dreams that I didn't think were possible. And it's really because, or that I even deserve for that matter. So some of the things that Grant has taught me on an internal level is, number one, I am worthy. I do deserve it. And whatever I deserve, though, it's not just what I deserve. It's what I go out and get. So Grant's taught me how to create my reality and not just have it happen haphazardly or because of luck.
He's really a dynamic individual. He's something.
Yes, absolutely. So I work from home, like I mentioned. I live on the Central Coast of California. It's been a dream of mine to do that since I was a little kid. And none of that would have happened had it not been for the mindset and the approach that I've learned from Grant. So, cheers.
So you moved to California from where?
Well, I grew up in California, and when Grant had an office in Beverly Hills, when he moved to Miami, I got the opportunity to work from home.
Nice.
Which gave me a little bit of flexibility in terms of where I live. And so I'm like, hey, I've always wanted to live on the Central Coast of California. I need to be close to family, which is why I didn't move to Miami, but I don't have to be that close. So we moved up a little bit, so.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I couldn't do that. I've thought many times about moving. One of my great friends just moved to Miami, and he's like, oh, buddy, you gotta make the move. I go down there, and it's not for me. I love Detroit. My family's been here since the 1850s, always in automotive. So it's like, I don't know. I love the old buildings. I love the old factories. I mean, it's who I am.
I think that's why we connect, though, because we're some old souls.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I love. I'm a big Humphrey Bogart fan. I really totally feel like I was born in '72, but probably would have been better off if I'd have born in 1872 versus.
Yeah. That's really. I know you study a lot of sales, as do I. I mean, if you go back to like the 1850s and you look at the stuff they were putting out, I mean, it's amazing. You look at like the stuff from NCR, National Cash Register, and when IBM was started, and it's really cool stuff. I like seeing things as they grow. We were talking like how it's a cycle.
Right. And I think the old adage about the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think, especially when we look at technology and the automotive industry and sales technology or sales practices, the reality is that the more things change, they are the same. I hear so many people feel like the internet has been like a challenge or a thorn in the side of automotive. And the reality is that whether it's 2018 like it is right now or 1918, people are going to do business with somebody that they know, like, and trust. Right. And I think every great sales trainer will allude to that in some way, shape, or form. Right. And so, but how you get to know somebody, how you become the ability to like somebody and the ability to trust somebody, it doesn't have to be in person anymore.
Sure.
If you can effectively leverage the internet, as a dealer, that's your website, that's your email communication, that's how you reach out, how you follow up, all of these things. I mean, people can know you, like you, and trust you without having to actually physically interact with you. And I think if you embrace that, you're still good.
Right. Yeah, I know. We were talking previously. when the dealers first started, when Henry Ford first started with his dealer network in Norval Hawkins back in, I think it was 1902, I believe, was when he started. The only reason he was doing that was because he couldn't service the rural cities. He couldn't get out there. He didn't have agents that could go out there and constantly be networking in those areas and learning the market and who lived where and did what, so that they could reach out and sell to these people. Well, now this whole thing has shifted. Like, if you're a General Motors, you can be Amazon. You've got that kind of reach. And it's interesting because you can build a big following. You can build a big brand as a dealership too. I mean, you look at what these guys are doing nationally, Glenn Lundy, Paragon Honda. I mean, some of these guys, it's amazing. It's amazing the following that they're building. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Puppy wants to get in on the conversation.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
No,
yeah,
and it's a brand image now. It's not just, and it comes back to about the experience, which I'll touch on when we dig into these. But I noticed there's a comment from Sean, and I wanted to address that. Sean says, do you have any stories of someone else becoming successful due to your tutelage? Well, so just to answer that first thing, for me, Sean, it's not my tutelage, it's Grant's tutelage first and foremost. And absolutely, if you you could go to cardoneuniversity.com/testimonials or cardoneondemand.com/testimonials or /case studies. And there is a slew of people who've had that experience. But I also want to, tell you this too, and agree with you 100%. You say you've known people who've become successful, but mainly based on their own drive. Michael Jordan has drive. David Goggins, if you don't know who that is, look him up. He has drive. Any Navy SEAL has drive, but it's not their own merit. They have to get training. They have to get teaching. They have to get tutelage. They have to get support from other people in order to be successful. Jordan had Tim Grover, right? That's the aspect of where Cardone or another trainer would probably plug into what you're looking for. So yeah, absolutely. It's got to be about your own merit. It's got to be about your own drive. You can lead a horse to water. Totally get that. Yeah. But you have to have a coach to push you. There's always going to be somebody behind the guy pushing them to help reach their next level.
Otherwise, your learning curve is never ending.
Right.
Totally. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to take other people's trial and error and compile it. I think that's what I like most about the old sales stuff. You get into the old sales stuff and they didn't have everything that we have. I mean, you don't get as deep into like the psychology and NLP and behavioral economics. While I love all that stuff, it's not as nuts and bolts. If you look at like an Elmer Wheeler, or some of those guys, But yeah, that's interesting. And I know that nobody's going to do it on their own.
Right.
Nobody's going to do it on their own.
I think, especially in today's day and age with the ADD environment that we're in, the more simple you can keep it and the faster you can deliver data to somebody and the more solution orientated it is, the better it's going to be for the general populace. Guys like you and I that want to dig into the theory, dig into the reason behind it, the psychology of it. I mean, that's great. That's why we read, but the average salesperson never read one book on selling ever.
Right. So we can kind of segue this in.
Yeah.
Because I believe, what we're talking about is really, really on point with what we're getting ready to talk about. Do you want to start with your three or you want me to start?
Well, do you want to go back and forth?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So number one, David Bradley, what's your number one thing? We can go 3, 2, 1. How about that?
We'll work backward. It's funny you say I didn't really put it in any kind of like order of importance. Just the first 3 things that popped into my head is what I wrote down.
Okay.
And I came up with 2 that are for salespeople because I wasn't 100% sure on who our audience is going to be today. Are we going to have professional salespeople on the call on this deal? Or are we going to have some leadership or maybe a little bit of both? So I want to make sure I sort of appeal to both. Yeah. So I've got 2 for salespeople, and I think if you're a leader in an organization, it would apply to you as well. And then I've got 1 that's specifically towards leadership. But I think for the first one, is because we are in what I like to call the add to cart economy. You can get anything within 2 days at your doorstep, courtesy of Amazon Prime. And speed is the most powerful thing. Companies like TrueCar and Carvana and Tesla have really sort of shaken this mold that we are so comfortable being in. And they're going to continue to shake that tree. And so I think what's most important right now is that if you're a salesperson or a company, let's just say you sell Honda, right? I can get a white Civic anywhere, like anywhere. So to try and sell the features, advantages, and benefits of a Honda Civic, well, yes, that's important. You have to put the experience of buying a Honda Civic from David Bradley or Jason Grace or whoever it may be. That should probably take precedence over the car.
Agreed.
So I think you should really de-escalate the product and then re-emphasize the experience about who you're buying it from. Statistically speaking, right now, most shoppers are somewhere between 50 and 60% done before they hit a quote request. They've already whittled down the car, right? And we talked about the statistic on dealerships. It's like 1.4, right? That they're going to, they know what they want at this point, right? Even if you look at some companies that are tracking demo ratios, test drives are going down. Right? Because we're so used to buying stuff. Here's a funny story, right? I knew that the industry was in for a huge change. I was selling Cadillac. This is 2010. When I got started in 2003, I was having a hard time getting people on test drives. And so my manager, Dan Carlton, if you're watching, Dan, I love you. He gives me this great word track. He says, anytime someone doesn't want to go on a test drive, ask them if they tried their shoes on before they bought it. Right? I'm like, oh, that's really good, right? Because you could say, hey, I don't need to drive it. So, well, did you try your shoes on before you got it? Well, of course I did. Right. So this is like a $50,000 shoe. You should take it, put it on, walk around the store a little bit. It worked every single time. Then 2010, Woodland Hills, California, selling Cadillac. This Russian guy. I said, hey, man, he goes, I don't need to drive car. I'm like, sure you do. Come on, did you try your shoes on before you bought them? He goes, no, I don't try Zappos. I'm like, I'm done.
Right.
I'm done.
That killed that.
Right. So with the way the industry is changing, with the way the processes are changing, it's got to be about the experience of buying a car and who you're buying it from and what that's all about. And that is what Carvana is actually marketing on in a negative way. But I mean, that's the push. Like, hey, you don't have to go through any of that stuff anymore.
Right.
So why aren't dealers doing that as well? And I think if you're a salesperson, you should be branding yourself. As a dealership, you should be going out there. I mean, that's what Glenn's doing. That's what Ben Stock's doing. That's what these guys are doing out there about branding, themselves as the place to go. And the last piece of that is that, and that's really what people, when customers are shopping on the internet, it's not about price. I promise you, they may say it and they may push it. It's just because that's what we train them to do. But what it really is who? Who's going to get my money? Who am I going to give it to? And it's usually going to be the person that is easy to deal with, fun, fast, and
familiar too. It's interesting. We know these names like Glenn and Ben Stock because they're familiar. Why are they familiar? Because they're omnipresent. You know what I mean? They're out here. They're constantly in front of us. They're doing things. Yeah. And I haven't been to Paris, Kentucky in a while. I've been there probably 10 years ago. But before that, I really didn't know who Glenn Lundy was. So it's the same thing with salespeople. Salespeople need to have a brand like Sean Hayes. I'm not saying that you need to be a motivational anything. I'm just saying that by putting yourself out here, it makes you personable. By showing videos and showing things that can help you to build rapport without even being there. You know what I mean? When people see these videos of you and your customers and things that you go over and above on the product. I mean, most of the time when a customer pulls into a dealership, they have an idea. They have a frame in mind that they're going to follow. This is what they're thinking, and they come on the lot, and then it's our job to slow it down and do our process, to make it fit. It's very, very important for people to be out there and to be approachable. The more that you do, the more you'll get back from it. And I've had a hard time with this personally, pushing things online and making more content. it's not something that you start off comfortable with. You know, it's something that you have to practice with. I mean, like just now, I didn't know how this was going to go. You know, I've done it a few times with other people, but you got to do it. You know, I mean, from your cell phone, from your laptop, whatever it is, get out there and push it so that people can see what it is that they're going to get over and above the standard experience. You know, everybody knows what comes in this Honda. Everybody knows what comes in this Chevy. There might be some features that are new and have just come out. But the biggest thing is to let everybody know what the value is that you're bringing.
But
Who was it?
And for salespeople, if you guys are listening, you got the salesperson is the value-added proposition. The gross profit in a car deal is going to be the experience the salesperson delivers. Because if you shop 5 or 6 dealers, we're all within a couple $100 of each other, right? At the end of the day. So why am I coming to you? Well, it's because of how you treat me. It's because of how you take care of me. It's because of how fast you can get me in and out. It's how well you can do the deal. And I think a lot of salespeople, they're watching this and they're thinking, dude, I totally agree with that. But just as you're saying, what kind of content do I come up with? How do I get myself out in the marketplace? How do I brand myself effectively? What do I do? Well, the 2 things I'll tell you are valuable Cardone lessons or Cardone isms, which is number 1, creativity follows commitment. So the mere fact that you commit to it 100%, you're going to go all in, you're going to you're coming out with your shield or on it. The commitment stimulates the creativity because you burn your ship. There's no way out. I have to get this done now. That's the first thing. The second piece of that, though, is that greatness precedes frequency. If you want to get great, you got to be frequent at it. And so that goes back to what Sean was saying earlier about having, mentors and going out on your own merit and having somebody to tutor you. You got to practice every single day. You got to be doing something every single day to get a little bit better. And you got to have that frequency in order to create, real greatness.
Right. So, Mike said, have a beginning, middle, and end, and be deliberate with your creativity.
Amen to that. And do you think you should start with the end? Begin with the end in mind, Mike? Is that like you want to go into a transaction or you want to go into the experience thinking this is a deal, right? And then back into how we're going to make that happen.
Yeah, I've seen. Have you ever heard of Jerry Weissman? He wrote a few books on IPO roadshows, right? He'd go around traveling and do IPO roadshows for the big guys, big multi-million-dollar corporations. And he filled out this whole step-by-step walkthrough as far as presenting. And it's pretty interesting. But more than anything, he followed that same tell him what you're going to tell him, then tell him what you told him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Old school. So I believe that there's a lot of ways of doing it. I follow this guy, Tyron, and he's a Forbes leader for LinkedIn, right? He works with people on building up their LinkedIn and doing a lot of B2B. He's a real big guy, but he says, hey, man, don't leave off with a Q&A because they forget everything. It's neat to have that kind of structure when you can see other people that are doing it over and over again and see what's working and what's not and why. Are people turning off right away? Well, what did I say? What should have I said to make people follow this beyond 30 seconds? Yep. Because I don't believe that 30 seconds should be a rule. I believe that that's more the interest in the content that you're bringing. You know what I mean? If you're bringing rock solid content, I don't care if it's 2 hours. I'll sit there. I'll pay my attention if it's worthwhile, if the value's there. Right. If the value's not there, then I'll notice right away and I'll check it out later if I have time or something,
We did Grant did a live stream. He's done 2 Thursdays back to back, over 1,500 people consistently on the stream.
Wow.
And then it's the views past that have been exponential.
Yeah, that's something.
So that was my first one was stop selling products, start selling experience. What's yours?
Demonstration was my last one. So the overall experience, I go to dealerships all the time, and I'm surprised how many of them put customers out on test drives solo. Sean, I've worked with Sean many times before, and he is an absolute stickler, as am I. You know, if you're doing a deal, the customer has to drive and you have to go with them. Outside of you having multiple customers, you know, I understand if you've got 3-4 customers going on at one time, you can't go with everyone unless you have an assistant or something along that line. But I hate the feeling of having to put a customer on a demo drive by themselves, you know, and the walk around. I mean, that's where your showmanship comes out. You know what I mean? That's where you really have to amp it up, show them what to touch, feel, smell, look, here, turn this, you know, watch this. This is how this works, you know what I mean? And you really get into it. That's where the product is sold, is in the demonstration. You know, it's not, I just don't understand why people would do all this build up to get the ability to look at their credit. You know, they do all this build up to get to pull up the car and try to talk them into driving it. And then they do all of these things to try to close the deal, when all the big stuff, the desire is built in that demonstration. That's where the desire comes from. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. I'm doing a sale in Willoughby, Ohio with the Penske group, and I needed shoes. I had on leather bottom shoes. So I run to the mall. It's raining, pouring down rain. Run to the mall, run inside. There's a men's store, and I need shoes. Tell the guy I need shoes. Here, check out this coat, right? He's trying to put this coat on me. I'm like, no, I need shoes. I don't need a coat. And it keeps going on and on about these cashmere coats, right? So finally he gets me to put it on. I put it on, and he takes a bottle of water, right? Makes a cup out of the side of the coat, comes over and starts dumping the water in this cup on the coat, and then shakes it off. And when he shakes it off, the coat's completely dry, but it's wool and cashmere. You know what I mean? Normally it'd be soaked, you know? Yeah, I'm like, wow. You know, and so I'm looking at it, and this one's camel hair. They got black, they got dark brown and blue. I'm like, okay, I'll take every color you got. I didn't even leave with shoes. You know what I mean? I didn't even leave with shoes because I met a salesman. I went in there. He did a great demonstration. But if you look at, I was in like a big box grocery store not that long ago, and they had this guy like showing knives. You remember the Ginsu guys?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Chopping the can in half and then cutting the tomato. You know, that's a demonstration. You watch these vacuum cleaner guys. You know, they do demonstrations. That is where the salesmanship, that's where the art of it comes in my opinion.
Right. That's the performance perspective. That's what Mike Phillips is talking about right now. And one of the, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but The Greatest Showman. Did you see this movie?
Yes. Yeah.
God, great film. You know, like that is something that I totally agree with you is missing, needs, and would love to see a little bit of resurgence in terms of really presenting in a way that, because I grew up in the theater. I did theater all through high school and most of college. I did some professional early on in the 90s. And it's like, man, you got to make a show out of it. You have to make it entertaining. You have to, you have to super freak the presentation.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, when I watched that, now P.T. Barnum, though, I think that just grazed the top of P.T. Barnum, that movie.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a really right interpretation. But I mean, he was the man. When it comes to, 100%. I mean, when it comes to real hardcore showman, I mean, that's a salesman to me. You know what I mean? You've got to be a showman. You've got to be out there. You've got to be enthusiastic. You know, the people pick up on that. You know, if all you're doing is delivering, no, man. If all you're doing is just you're acting like a cashier or it's transactional. You know, stop.
Here's the thing that I think is really interesting, right? Especially in today's like mindset and economy, is that you have got to do all of that from a legitimate place of service and interest in helping the buyer make the right decision.
And you can't do that until you've listened enough to be able to know exactly what it is they feel and why they feel it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I agree wholeheartedly. I've seen guys that'll push, and they'll have this boisterous presentation, but it's not what they're looking for. You know what I mean? and I've done it myself. I'm not just picking on other people, but I've got all excited about tech in a car, and then the people say, we hate tech.
Right.
You know, here I am, and I'm pushing it, man. Well, check this out. Bing, 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 bing. I'm pushing all these buttons, making everything talk, you know, and they're overwhelmed. I shouldn't have did that because I didn't pay attention. But every time that I have messed up, I try to learn from it. So, I mean, you really have to know the customer that you're dealing with.
Totally. You got to be asking the right questions and presenting things that are important to them and understanding what their needs are.
Owen asked if I'm in a safe house.
I asked him if he was in a funeral parlor earlier.
You know what? I'm trying to get this lighting right, and I've set up like a bunch of different cameras, and it hasn't worked out too well. You know what I mean? Like I got
witness protection program on Wednesday. Right. That dog is actually the guard dog. He's the bomb sniffing dog.
Yeah, man.
Jason saw something he wasn't supposed to see.
Right. Yeah, so I mean that's just it is the demonstration for me. That's the third of them. You know, our products, no matter what it is, knowing how to demonstrate it into how it benefits that individual directly.
Yep.
All right. I love the statement features and benefits, but we sell features for the benefits that they buy. You know what I mean? They buy the benefits, how it benefits them directly. That's what they're buying.
You got to be able to tie that in. You got to do it in a way that makes them recognize that there's more value in this than the money.
Right.
Because the only reason someone's going to buy something is to solve a problem.
Right. That's it.
Like and what's ironic is you went in with a shoe problem and left with a coat solution.
Right. Right. That's a good salesman.
Yeah, but you still had a problem of keeping dry because it was raining.
Sure.
So ultimately, he solved the problem. But I mean, no one's going to come in and buy something the only reason they're doing the deal is to solve a problem.
Sure.
And if you don't understand what that problem is and how, this is the real clincher though, what that problem is costing them by having it and what relief they get by the solution.
Right.
Very, very important to custom tailoring that presentation.
You ever heard of Jim Campbell? Jim Camp. I'm sorry. Jim Camp. Yeah, he was a negotiations coach. I mean, he trained these guys at Harvard. I mean, big time guy. But he wrote the book Start with No. Right?
No.
Have you heard of Uri Fisher?
Yeah, Fisher. Yeah, and Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss.
Yeah.
He talks about.
Yeah. So Chris Voss was a mentee of Jim Camp, right? From what I understand, anyways. Oh man, now I lost it. Where I was going.
Solving a problem. We were talking about solving a problem.
Paint with their pain. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Paint with their pain. Yeah, paint with their pain. So you have to first, what he says to do is blank slate, right? So you blank slate, you clear your mind, you don't be needy in any way, shape, or form going into a negotiation. You don't be needy, you clear your mind. You want the deal, you don't need the deal, right? But that's the only way you're going to find out their true objections and their true objectives. And when you get there, then you can see what hurts and why. And as you're seeing that, then you can take that and show it back to them and magnify it. You know, so hey, you don't want to be in this situation where your car's breaking down right now and it's nickel and diming you. But right now, let's say you're driving a 2000. I had a guy earlier driving a 2011 Fusion with 97,000 miles on it. Okay, so the value of that 2011 Fusion is going to be worth much more right now than it will be after 100,000 miles, right? So I mean, if you stay in this car, it's going to hurt you, not just nickel and diming, right? Because let's say it's worth $8,500 right now. If it's worth $8,500 now, you run it over 3,000 more miles, and where are you going to be at then? 4,500 because nobody's going to want to finance it,
right?
So I mean, the thing is, you turn it around and you magnify the reflection. I mean, put it back on them, paint with their pain. I really liked when he said that. It made sense.
Think about it, sir. Adding time to this deal is not going to make the deal any better. I promise.
Right. Right. That's just it. Yeah, man. All right. So what was your number? Your number two there. I
Yeah,
know you don't
number
have
two.
any numbers.
This goes to salespeople specifically. Is that you have to stop relying on the dealership to bring you traffic or provide you leads.
I love that. I love that. But that's also, it's difficult. I mean, if you're a new salesperson and you are starting out, I mean, like when I first started, I had no idea what I was getting into. You know, I had worked in records and radio, but I had also worked in a steel mill. My money wasn't right. You know what I mean? And I'm going into this dealership with no expectations whatsoever. So getting me at that point to drop, you know, $3,000, $4,000 on advertising, that would have been very difficult to do.
Right, and I
No.
totally agree with you. I'm just where I'm coming from on that is that if you're a sales professional and you've been selling cars for 9+ months, you should transition into making it your unholy mission to never be dependent on ups.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, I'll give you
100%.
like a 9-month grace period, but if you're committed to being a professional in that industry, then you have no business relying on ups after 9 months. None.
Man, you are spot on there, because it's a no-brainer. When you look at guys like Ali Rita, right? He's not taking ups. You
No.
look at the top guy. I go all across the United States, and I see salespeople, and the top people, they aren't taking ups, and nobody messes with their customers. And in a lot of cases, the sales managers listen to them. You know what I mean? They respect them in a way that they aren't going to be messed with. And I don't care who you are. You aren't messing with their customers. You aren't messing with them in any way, shape, or form. You just let Jim do what Jim does.
Right.
So, I mean, he's an old union guy, whatever it is, but he's got a book of business.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's got a book of business. So the thing is, you have to build a book of business. You know, an up is an unqualified prospect. So your prospects, all right, your prospects have to be rock solid, or you're wasting your time. The better your prospects are, like, I don't have to resell this customer that I've sold their last 3 cars. I don't have to bring her in, slow her down, build rapport. Yes, I have to be nice and be open and approachable. But yeah, I mean, it's something that people don't do that as much. And I think that turnover probably plays a role in that.
Well, yeah, and you know what I think is what I see a lot of, and is that there's a line. There's like people that have a more entrepreneurial business within a business. Like, remember when we first got in the car business, and it's at some point a manager gives you this, you're a dealership of one speech.
Right.
You're a business within a business. We're going to provide you with everything you need. All you got to do is show up in dress nice, wear a tie, have a pen, right? Cover the rent, but it's your business.
That's it.
So there's a percentage of salespeople that hear that the first time, take it very seriously, and then they go after it, right? They grind really, really hard on that. Then there's another group that I feel like they got into the car business because they needed a job, and they have an employee mindset,
right?
Which is show up, clock in, do your gig.
Group dynamics
is
what that is. You know what? I mean, it's really interesting. You ever see that? So you look at a bell. There's a whole bias around it, but how people, if you take a whole bunch of people and put them in a room, and you give them a task to complete.
Yep.
The same people always kind of pick the same tasks. You know what I mean? You have your leaders, your laggers, and then the main in the middle. You know what I mean? It's really interesting. But no matter where you go, you see that. You know, I mean, it's everywhere. You know, you get into that position, and people will follow the leader. You know, I've been to dealerships. I started at this dealership in 2010, and everybody hated me. Right? Nobody wanted me there. Bunch of old school car guys, and as soon as they'd pull on the lot, as soon as the up would pull on the lot, I'd take off running out the door. And they'd let him get out of the car, Jay. Let him get out of the car. No, man. You know, hang tight. I'm trying to make some money. But over time, from them complaining about me and giving me hell every time that I didn't have a customer, it was I fell into what they were doing. You know what I mean? It was like I'd wait for him to get out of the car, wait for him to start looking at something, where before that I would run out and I would stop the car.
Right.
You kind of fall in line, and you
to the monkey court.
Get in there. Yeah. It's bad, but I think that's what happens when you lack leadership. You know what I mean? When you lack leadership,
functional leadership, and I had the exact same challenge. I allowed the mob mentality to limit my potential for a period of time.
Right.
Yeah. I want to take a pause for a commercial break, and what I want to do, you talk about something valuable while I go grab my charger.
All right. So now, as far as salespeople marketing, I believe that they are somewhat, I don't want to say deterred from doing it, but I know of dealers that don't want salespeople to have dedicated Facebook pages and dedicated websites, and that makes them very nervous. If you're scared of your salesperson advertising and driving business, there's something wrong. You shouldn't be in that relationship, in my opinion. If you don't want the people that are being compensated and commissioned to be able to do that job, they've got to be online. They've got to be on Facebook and have their own websites and have their own branding. You should support that, and the more that you support that, the better off they'll do, and the more likely they'll be to stay there. The better they do.
Well, it's
important. Say that again.
You got to fish where the fish are.
Right.
Customers
Absolutely.
are on Facebook.
Right. It's something though. Something that everybody wants to post a picture of them selling a car and put it on their page. That's something that, if you follow somebody, like I follow people that I do business with, so if I do business at a dealership and a sales guy makes his page and he adds me and I follow him, then he starts, every single car he sells, he's posting pictures. You got to tweak that a little bit. The way to do that is to take the picture and post it to the customer's page and tag yourself in it.
Yeah.
Because then it's outward.
Well,
people know you sell cars. I think that you should add more value and push less. People will buy what you're selling, but push less.
Jab, right hook.
Right.
For me, like in our world, for me that means value. Just sold the car. Come buy from me. Value. Come buy. Value. Just sold the car. Appraising this. Like those things should be there. Like.
Right.
Because it shows activity, right? It also puts competition on notice, right? So, but at the same time, we should be putting things about, transparency, 6 steps to know the dealership's not ripping you off, how to shop for a car online now, effectively, how to save time before you get to the dealership, there should be things to push content to the buyer about how to effectively buy the car, or, when to not take your car into the service, or when to not use the dealer for service on your car. And that article, like you could write a piece on that. If you do it correctly, you'd actually build more value and transparency in the dealership by telling people when not to bring it in for service.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times you can gain a lot of people's respect by telling them that we're not a good fit. You get a dealer that calls you and he wants to do mail or he wants to do a sale, and I say, it's just, this isn't something that's going to work for you. I'm sorry, you're not set up for it. It's not for everybody, and I'll help you any way that I can, but this just isn't going to work. And I tell them why and what would have to change, and sometimes they call me back and say, hey, look, we did this and this, or I get a referral from them. They say, hey, use this guy and he'll tell you right. I mean, the people that'll constantly tell you no matter what, buy, it's hard to trust them. But the people that say, hey, look, you're best off buying in these months it would make me feel like they're being more honest. You know what I mean? Or don't buy this one, buy this one. You get a better rebate on that one, and yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's about giving people choices, options. All of those things add to the value of the transaction, which is what we were talking about in the very beginning, which is you got to build. You have to become the expert. You got to be a celebrity in your space. You have to be the go-to guy.
Right.
Whatever brand you're selling, like you want people to feel like when they think Buick, they think Dave.
Right.
Or Melissa or whoever, whatever brand you're on, like that, you should be the first person that they think of.
Right. Like Xerox with copies.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Yep.
There's, and I think like it's an interesting thing. This is how that the industry's changing is that, 25 years ago, you and I were having an argument about some piece of knowledge or information or fact, like the date Lincoln was shot. Maybe we'd have an argument on that. And you know what you'd say? You'd say, hey, go look it up in the encyclopedia.
Right.
We don't say that anymore. What do we say? Google
it. Right.
So how, like that's branding.
Right.
That's omnipresence. That's getting stuck in somebody's head. When the answer to an argument to prove you're right is Google it.
Right.
How much bullshit is on Google?
Right.
Most of it's not even correct.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
That I love so much, which is never believe anything you read on the internet.
Something funny. I'll share with you because we're friends and just keep this between us.
Oh yeah.
But,
okay.
Yeah. So I'm tired. I mean, my oldest son is being born. We've been up for 3 days, right, going through this delivery, and the doctor asked how we wanted to spell, or the nurse asked how we wanted to spell Sebastian. So I Googled it, right? Just to make sure I had it right. And I started second guessing, and it was Tion on Google's boy name list. So his name is Sebastion instead of Tian, where all the other kids are. He got Googled.
So for the rest of his life, he's going to be correcting everybody.
Right. No, it's Tion, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. So I learned the hard way. Google isn't always accurate.
His nickname should be Ion.
Right. Right. Yeah, man.
Great story.
Kleenex first tissue. Yeah.
So how we spun into that, but that's like for us, the bottom line though is you don't want to be dependent on showroom traffic. You don't even want to be dependent on internet leads.
Right. You got to have multiple points. You got to be diversified, just like you would be with your investments. You got to be diversified. Having social groups. This is something that I've been paying a lot of attention to lately. Is these local old school social groups. The yacht club, the golf and country club. You look around here, and they're in my area. There's a lot of business people that just belong to these things to go hang out. Like they aren't doing anything. They aren't even golfing. They're just hanging out. It's something. But when you build these networks, where everybody knows you, when things come up, you'll get business. You know. So I mean, building those social circles. Like when I first started, I remember trying to join any kind of local community group. They have like the Lions Club and all these different social organizations. I believe it's really valuable. And like your church, if you go to church, work in your church, I mean, letting everybody know what you do. I'm not saying, you got to be standing up, giving a presentation about what vehicles you're selling, this and that in the church sermon. I'm just saying that everybody should know what you do. Wherever you go. I mean, if you're patronizing a local store, everybody there should know what you do. Your coffee shop, everybody should know. You know what I mean? So that builds value in your community. You want to get your name out there. The more you do that, the better off you'll be. But yeah, don't depend on one source.
Speaking of pain, my first year in the car business, this never happened to me again. It happened once and then never again. I lived when my wife and I first got married in 2004. We lived in this apartment complex that had like 150 units. And Wednesday was my bell shift. I was in at 8, wouldn't leave until 9 o'clock at night. busy day. Never really took a break. Was just grinding all day. I get home completely worn out, and in the drive in the parking the parking space next to me. I was selling Acura at the time. The parking space next to me, brand new TL with my dealer plates and a reg, and I didn't sell them.
Yeah. How did that feel?
My neighbor.
Yeah.
Right. I saw him the next day. I'm like, hey, you were at the Acura store yesterday. You got a new car. I said, yeah. Who's your salesman? Oh, it's Richard or whatever. And I'm like, I work there. Like, no, I didn't know that. And,
man.
Right, even talking about that. So like, and I realized that that's my fault.
100%.
Totally my fault. I screwed that up so bad, and then never again. It's that same whole thing I said earlier. It should be your unholy mission to never rely on ups. Ups should be gravy. They should be fun. It should be a relaxed experience for you. You shouldn't be dependent on that where you feel like you got to close that fresh customer cold because you got to book so deep that whether they do anything with you right now or not, it's not a big deal.
Right. And you can call them for referrals.
Get it.
Have your friends play up the street. Oh.
The dog is our meter on when we're hitting on a hot spot.
Right. Have your friends play up the street.
So what's your
in the field? Say that again.
What's the second one for you? What's your second one?
My second one, give me 1 second. Environment. My second one was environment.
Okay.
When we go into a dealership, we do balloons, we do hang tags on the windows, flyers on the windows. We hang balloons from the ceiling. We have streamers. We do all kinds of fun things to create a circus-like environment. No gorilla.
Wailing tube men?
Oh yeah, tube men. We anything that we can add to the environment mobily, you know what I mean? Because it's not our dealership. We got to be able to take it down when we leave. That's a big thing though when people come in and they go, wow, what's going on here? You know what I mean? And I remember we did it was actually Sean's show in Vineland, New Jersey. We had so many balloons, it would have put a prom to shame. You know what I mean? It was just unreal. Like you had to walk through the balloons and dig your way through. There were just so many balloons. But it was a fun environment.
Yes.
When you build these environments like the music and be upbeat and things that you provide, snacks and things of that nature, so that people don't have to leave to eat. I mean, it's just there are so many things in that environment, right? So that there are three main things that drive behavior, right? Three main things. And it's psychology, biology, and sociology, right? Things are all emotions before they become thoughts. Do you agree with that? Things are emotions before they become thoughts. They come from the outer spaces inward, right?
All right, keep going.
So like when we feel something, then we think it. We don't think it, then feel it, right? So when we go into a dealership and it's dead, like we were talking about Toys R Us, how Toys R Us was going out of business and they could have did all these things. You walk into a Toys R Us and what's that experience? What is that experience? It was awful. I was just in a Toys R Us not that long ago. And I mean, I remember going there as a kid thinking I was so lucky. You remember all the videos of the kids running down the aisleways, knocking stuff in the carts and, doing these shopping sprees. But now it's boring. It's like half closed store. You got all these box games and nothing was set up right. I mean, it's just waiting to die. You know what I mean? That's all that it was waiting to die. If you go into a dealership, it should not feel that way. It should be exciting. It should be fun. It doesn't have to be like Brett David's Lamborghini store, but say that again.
Carl Sewell's book, Customers for Life.
No, I haven't read that one.
Fantastic. It's like he's got right in the middle of the book. It's this big thing. Selling should be theater. Like the dealership should be. The showroom should look like the auto show, in my opinion.
Right.
Cars,
right.
Like high intensity lights, and if I ran a dealership, I'd have theater lighting up there, like a concert. You know, we'd have lasers, we'd have bright lights on it. We'd have like movement on the floor. I mean, we'd have like it'd be a show.
It should be. You know what I mean? It absolutely should be. I mean, the environment invokes feelings in you. You can't help it. You know what I mean? I don't care where you're at. If you walk into like the Fox Theater, I don't know what theaters are around you, but if you walk into the Fox Theater downtown Detroit, you're in awe. You know what I mean? I mean, this place, you got the gold walls, and I mean all this old school stuff, big huge pane glass doors, and everything. It's like royal. You know what I mean? You go in there and you feel something from that. You know, you take that in. If you go in a place and it's dirty and grungy, you feel from that too. You know, so I mean, taking pride in your environment, that's a big deal. That's a real big deal. You know, and yeah, Melissa Skinner said dealerships are boring. You have to create excitement. I agree 100%. You have to create excitement. You know, you have to provide an environment that they want to hang out in. You know, and I've seen dealerships with arcade rooms and things of that nature, and that's nice. That's a nice to have, like the big kid rooms and stuff like that, big play areas. That's cool, but it's not. Let's have a play area for the adults. You know what I mean? That's what I want. People should have this. I mean, you know, let me look. I had links pulled up. Edmunds did a piece in 2009, did an article on the top 10 auto dealership perks and palaces, and I'm going to share that link here in the comments, if I can. Let's see. Maybe I can't. I can share it on screen, but you won't be able to click it. I'll share it afterwards here. I'll put it on screen now. But there was some stuff. There was some stuff that I took from it. Oh, that's awful. I'm not going to do that. All right. There was some stuff that I took from it. Like number one was a shuttle to and from the airport. So they would, if you drive your car to this dealership in California, they will clean your car up and pick you up when you get back. Fletcher Jones Mercedes in Newport Beach, California.
Yep.
Yeah, Fletcher Jones will pick. I mean, it's adding value like that. You know what I mean? Imagine how many extra deals they get. You know, hey, we got your car all cleaned up. It's sitting here, and next to it is the newer version that you can update to for, you know, next to nothing with the rebates right now.
So what would be interesting to throw out at this point is for this, like salespeople, like if you're just a salesperson at a dealership, and then you're like, okay, so Dave was talking about being a dealership of one, you know, going the extra mile, stepping out. It's like, how does that work? It's like, as a salesperson, when you're dealing with a customer and the guy's like, hey, I got a better deal down the street, what value are you bringing to justify paying the extra money? Don't automatically, well, what's it going to take during your business? If I could, would you let me talk to my manager, bring me any deal that you find, and I'll beat it. And if you go somewhere else, you'll pay too much. What value does that give to your customer? It doesn't do, pardon my French, it doesn't do shit for them. Okay, but here's what it is. So if the money turned out to be the exact same, well, where would you rather do the deal? Well, we'd rather do it with you. Why? Well, because you're closer. Why? Because of this. They even have it. They still haven't even mentioned you. So your job as the salesperson is to be so value orientated that you're the guy that says, hey, look, when you need to get your car brought in for service, right? And you can't get in here because you're too busy. I'm the guy that's going to come to your work, pick your car up, bring it in, get the service done, get it detailed, then bring it back to you before 5 o'clock today.
Right. That's what quick and simple. Now that's huge value.
Right.
Huge value.
It's like, or if you are that dealership that's near an airport, right? Let's say you're in Torrance, California, near LAX, right? You need to ride to the airport? Forget Uber. I'm your guy.
Right. Drop your car here. When you get back, it'll be cleaned and ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a big push. That's awesome.
Right.
You know,
And
for the right
most
people.
people need to start thinking with, hey, how can I take these things that these big box dealers like Fletcher Jones is huge
Yeah.
in California, massive, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you've ever been to the show, to their dealership, it is a Taj Mahal of a Mercedes store, gorgeous. And so, like, if as a salesperson, how do you bring that? Grant talks a lot about in this book, Sell or Be Sold. Shameless plug. Ritz Carlton or Holiday Inn? What do you want to be? Or
Right.
so, not that there's anything wrong with Holiday Inn, but what kind of experience are we delivering?
Right. You can't be the Holiday Inn and ask for the Ritz money.
There you
It doesn't
go.
work that way. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and price is what you pay, value is what you give. Right?
Yep.
So I mean, if you're gonna expect to make more money, you have to provide that service, or it's not gonna last long.
And even if the customer won't admit it, they will pay more money for a better experience and a great attitude.
Absolutely, every single time. I do it all the time. I pay more for groceries. I pay more for so many things that I could get cheaper in different ways because of my perceived value. You know what I mean? Things that are different. Like I like dealing with people. I like working with people on certain things. I hate buying groceries. That'll be the first thing that as soon as Amazon Fresh, whatever it is, gets to my city, I will be the first one signing up.
Right.
You know, unfortunately, they don't offer that yet. But people will automatically pay more for the service, for the experience. But don't become a commodity. If you're selling a commodity, you're out. You're gone. That's what they were looking at. Was they were talking recently on this podcast I was listening to about the commoditization of services. Right. So we're going from an experience to a commodity. Right. So instead of
what's the guy that used to run True Car? Scott Painter.
Scott Painter, yeah.
Okay, that was his line. The car's a commodity now.
Yeah.
Which I thought was sad, but it's kind of true.
It is sad. It is sad, and it can be true if we as salespeople aren't doing our part. Because we have a big opportunity right now. We don't. I mean, if you look at that single dealer mentality, like you were talking about, where this is my dealership, you're not going to find that in other industries. Where you can go in and we've got $5 million in inventory and we've got all of this assistance and administrative backup and websites and all this stuff. It's just not going to be there, especially when it's turning into a commodity like it is. That's where the best people like Ali Rita and the heavy hitters are really building themselves, and they're doing the best because when the time comes, they're not going to be without a job.
No, because it's cool to buy from them.
Right. Yeah, and the bigger you get, it becomes a thing. Like you think that when you have people in town talking about you being in the newspaper for selling so many cars, do you think you're going to get less business? You know what I mean? No, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, I bought my car from that Guinness World Record guy." You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what take the kids to get pictures with them.
Right.
I mean, I remember being a kid and going. The first time I remember my aunt and uncle buying a new car, it was a bad overall experience. I was about 13. It was a bad overall experience, but we were all still really excited about it. As weird as that sounds, you know what I mean? Like we were super excited. I mean, back then it was still a $40,000 truck, and we were building it, speccing it all out, and the salesman just left us alone for hours, sitting at his cubicle. You know what I mean? We just sat there for hours, just waiting for the paperwork, and it was an awful experience, But I believe that if we provide a good experience, people will tell people. You know what I mean? It's just like leaving an Amazon review. I don't leave many, but you'd have to really give me a bad product or really give me a great product to get me to do something. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what? I love this thing. I'm going to go give them, a shot out here and tell everybody how much I like it.
I see it all the time. If you make somebody happy, with any luck, they'll send you a referral. They may leave you a review. And if you ask, most likely you'll follow through on it. 91% of all buyers said they would provide a referral or they would give a positive review, but only 11% of salespeople ask.
Right.
So, like, maybe we should start asking more, which
right.
goes.
It should be a requirement.
If you need to take up, so you've done something wrong. So,
right.
But where was I going to that? I forget. I totally lost my train of thought. But like, if I don't know, it's gone.
All right.
It'll come back.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, it's all right.
I hate when that happens. That's all right, brother. That's all right. All right. So environment was. Sorry, my dog's trying to get up here.
Bring him up, man.
Oh no!
Show the dog.
He's too big. He'll knock everything over. Down. Come on. All right. So what was your number one?
So yeah. So the my last one. This is strictly for leadership. What's interesting about that, though, is the more we've been talking, I'm realizing that while I've designed my last one for leaders in an organization, you're still, if you're a single person, you're still a leader. You're going to lead your customer. You may even have some opportunities. You were saying if the heavier of a hitter you are, the more leadership position you inadvertently have with your management team.
Right.
So, but the bottom line is, and because of who I work for, I'm a sales trainer. I sell sales training. I work for the number one sales trainer on the planet. Yes, I'm happy to debate that with anybody later. But that being said, training in the dealership more often than not is an activity. There's not a dealer on the planet that's going to disagree with the fact that salespeople need training. The dealership needs training. In order to be successful and profitable, we need to train. But the disconnect comes in is when training is an activity, meaning it's something that we all agree we should do, and it's something that we do, but we're winging it. There's no real set training process.
There's no protocol. There's no process. It should just be the fabric.
Correct. So like if you go, but in any other team, any other type of team, military, athletic, legal, medical team, yeah.
Training.
There is a training process. There's a process.
That was my number one.
Somebody, how to teach somebody, right? So like, and I don't really care what it is. Like in our company, we have a 4-step process for training salespeople. Whether you did business with us or not, you got to adapt, develop, and have a training process that is consistent, engageable, and most importantly, increases sales.
So now, when you guys have a 5-step process, now is it in increments?
So Grant has a 5-step selling process, and there's a 4-step training process.
Okay, so the 4-step training process, you have like a beginners, then you move through that, sophomore, and how does that, you know what I mean? You become a master salesman.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cardone has a certification path that's about 3 years deep, where you start at new hire and you work your way through to become that. But what should a leader be doing? We have 4 steps that a leader should be doing daily with their salespeople.
I love that.
To train them, skill them up, develop them, regardless of their level. Whether you're a 20-car guy who's been doing it for 20 years, and if you're not improving, that's a problem. Right? You should. Right. If you have a sales guy and you're like, hey man, that guy does 20 cars. He's been doing 20 cars for me for the last 15 years. I'm not going to mess with him. 20 years, 20 cars. Shouldn't he be at 30 by now? Shouldn't he be at like? Why wouldn't we want to help him get to his next level?
Right. What's holding him back at this point?
Right. He's just flatlined. He's stale. He's not even present anymore. He's selling a car while he's thinking about what he's going to get at the supermarket. He's not even with the customer.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I like that employee mindset.
Yeah, I like the Astor said woven in. Now, to me, it has to be something that you're constantly doing. You know what I mean? It's not something that you can plan to do on Saturday mornings. You know what I mean? Or plan to do on Wednesday afternoons. and that's it. I mean, it has to be a daily deal. Like, okay, so what is this salesperson's goals? All right, now how are we going to break this down over a week and over a month and over a quarter and over this year to help them meet their goals? I mean, you got to plan it out. If you're not planning it, then it's going to fail. It is a plan to fail if you're not planning it, So it's got to be woven in. Absolutely. 100%. What gets measured gets managed. You know who said that, David?
Well, right here, Astor West just said it.
Yeah, but you know who the quote is from?
No.
All right, Peter Drucker. You know who Peter Drucker is?
No.
Oh, stop. Come on, man.
I'm writing down all these names. Drucker?
Yeah, man. Peter Drucker. He's like one of the founding fathers of modern management. He's the guy. Right? So you got Taylor. Taylor bred Ford, right? Henry Ford. All his stuff comes from Taylorisms, right? Turned into Fordisms. But Drucker was the main guy. Like the Japanese have awards and stuff named after this guy. I mean, he's something else. But he said what gets measured gets managed. And the thing is, if we're measuring output constantly, we're managing it. If we're not measuring output, we're not managing it. There's no way. If you're not measuring it, you are not managing it. It's just as simple as that. Like when it comes to effort, you go into a dealership, most places aren't really on top of salespeople as far as, okay, how many calls did you make? And what was you know what I mean? They're just not on top of them. Okay, if they see them busy, that's about it. You know what I mean? If they see them moving, that's what they're looking for. We're just looking for people to put in an effort. There is, and I'm not putting it all on the sales manager because sales managers have a lot on their plate, and I think that's just bad management to overstress somebody with too much to the point that they can't do what you've put them in that position to do. You know what I mean? I see a lot of that where they're really, I mean, maybe it's time management. I don't know, but from what I've seen, it's they're not capable. Part of it, they're not capable of providing that kind of training all day long. They need somebody to sit there. I mean, when you got 20 salespeople, or big staffs, I mean, you've got to have a plan in place. So right. you'd need a Cardone on demand or something to fill in the slots. You know what I mean?
And that's where that program. That's why online is so effective. That if you're a desk manager at a dealership and you're desking 3 deals, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. Your kid's soccer game starts in 90 minutes. You still have the service heater you've been trying to handle for the last 45 minutes. Nobody's answering the damn phone. You haven't even been able to order lunch yet. It's Tuesday, right? When are you training? Yeah. I mean, you're not. That's just there's no. I mean, that's not even how that's supposed to roll out. And so what Cardone on Demand does is it literally gives the manager where Grant becomes like a virtual trainer in your store. Right. Where when the sales guy's like, hey, this guy wants, he loves the car, but he's going to go talk to his wife. Management can be like, so what would Grant do right now? And that's his cue. Hey, go get an answer from that program. Because in 30 seconds, I'll tell you how to handle it. I need to talk to my wife.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strong. I mean, but you've got to have that practice, the process of practice in place. You know what I mean? It's got to be a daily process that you're practicing sales, you're practicing your role playing, you're doing these things on a day-to-day basis. And I know it's difficult. I know that it can get overwhelming. So it's important to get everything that you can. I mean, Cardone. I've for the longest time I've followed a lot of old school guys. Elmer Wheeler, Drucker. I try to go back. I try to go back as far as I can, and pick up as much knowledge from the old school stuff because it's a little more fundamental. You know what I mean? Just real super basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because what they were doing is they were training people that could barely read. You know what I mean? If you go back World War I, you know what I mean? You go pre-1940s, and you look at that stuff, and these people couldn't read. So the stuff had to be very, very, very basic. You're going from being farmers to being a skilled trade. It has to be very paint by numbers, and it has to be across the board understandable. Like you and I were talking, okay, well, how can we change Is it the process? Is it the sales process? 11 steps, 13 steps.
I
was looking.
Keep it simple. And this is, one of the things that is awesome to me. And one of the things that I loved about selling cars in Los Angeles, California, was that, man, what a melting pot, right? What a there's so much culture in LA, right? And and it's not even like it used to be, but there's no there's kind of neighborhoods or barrios where there's certain different cultures in certain specific areas. Sure, that's there, but for the most part, everybody's all together, right? And so if you have somebody from a different country who can barely speak or have any command of the English language, and they want to get into sales, and they've got the drive, they've got the passion, they got the energy, they're personable, they're friendly, they're good people, but they're not, they're still learning how to talk English. I'm going to break this guy down on the psychology of selling and teach him 4 different ways to handle kinesthetic, auditory, visual, all that. Because I need to know how to greet the guy. Right. I can barely say hello. You know what I mean?
It's a word track. Simple.
Dude,
keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple, right? Yeah. Let's not make it.
I met with this dealer staff today, and they're all new. You know what I mean? This dealer staff, this dealer, we're doing a promotion. They're all new. I mean, all been in the business for a short period of time. They've been in other sales jobs, but nothing like the communication type that's necessary in a car dealership. So we're going over this stuff, and like we had talked about, I broke it down and said, look, at the very, very basis of sales, it's 2 things, 2 principles, right? There's only 2 that can't go anywhere, and that's a desire and a decision. Yeah. So if we focus on these principles first, okay, we focus on building desire. Now we got to make the people like us. We got to make them like the dealership. We got to make them like the brand, like the car. There is a whole bunch of things, but desiring that vehicle, desiring to move forward. If you sell that desire enough, the decision's going to happen. Yeah, it doesn't matter about price. But it was interesting the way that they picked that up differently than when I ran through a road to the sale or a step by step. It was interesting because it seemed like it clicked, which it's like it should be simple and fundamental, but a lot of people don't get it. And it's not their fault. It's our fault. It's our fault. It's always going to be the leader's fault. Right. Whoever it is, whatever position you're in.
You got to start at some basic fundamental things. When we talk to salespeople a lot, I'll hear managers go in and talk about these big, massive goals and dreams. And I've got them, Grant's got them, and you want people thinking big, right? Right. But there's a stair step to get there. Right, because you're talking about these big things, and a sales guy's like, okay, I got a choice to either make rent or a car payment this month, but I'm not going to probably be able to do both. So, and you're talking to me about being
a millionaire.
Come on, man, right? I got to, what payments am I going to make on time, and which ones are going to be late, right? I'm trying to figure out where to hide my car so it doesn't get repoed. And you're talking about, so I need to, you want to hit these guys, you want to hit people at a level where they can first grab onto it, and then they get that. Now I can elevate them to this.
Right. Meet them where they're at, just like sales, just like customers.
About being totally debt free. That might be more motivating, right? Right. Than the trip to the Bahamas or whatever. It's not even
just having things covered.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as with customers. Meeting them where they're at. You got to meet them where they're at in the deal. If it's an internet lead, you're meeting them where they're at. Have they made this decision already? Are they just starting? You meet them where they're at with the right thing. Who was it? Oh, John Maxwell. He said, there's a leadership floor, right? Or a leadership ceiling, right? You can only go as high as your leadership. Right? Yep. So the leader has to raise. If the leader doesn't raise, those people will never raise. You only get that high, Right. And it's spot on.
Brian Tracy talked about that with the income barometer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Where a sales guy thinks he's worth this, So, and if he gets within 10% above it or below it, he's good. And if he drops below that, he'll push to get there. And if he goes over it, like he accidentally sells,
he'll calm down, right?
Sabotage himself until he gets back to that.
That is interesting. Yeah, that's spot on. I haven't heard that one.
Have you ever seen a sales guy bang? He's a 15 car guy or a 15 whatever, and then he tripped into 20 deals 2 weeks into the month, and he just blanks for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then he comes back normal next month.
Well, see, we do staffed events, so we usually only run for a week long. You know, that's what I've been used to for the last 10 years. But you see a guy go and do some monster deal, you know, and he is way less aggressive. You know, I've been there. I've been there. You know, you stack up, you make $5,000 going into the second day, and you're gonna step off. You know, you're gonna say, "Hey, you guys go get yours. No, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna eat over here." You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you lose that drive. So as a leader, you've got to know how to push your people without breaking them. You know, I believe. But training is absolutely that's the number one thing. Training is absolutely the number one thing because it's missing in so many places. And a friend of mine, Brad, said, you go into McDonald's and everybody's been trained. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to greet you, what they're supposed to do, step by step by step by step. But you go into a dealership and nobody knows what's going on. You know, customers have to chase down salespeople. Or, you know, it's just, that should never be that way. You know what I mean? It should never be that way. So training is absolutely paramount and things that have to change, and it has to be expected across the board. And people say, I hate meetings. It doesn't have to be a meeting. It doesn't have to be a meeting, you know?
Well, the only reason you're not going to like it is because you don't know how to do it.
Right. Right. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, and the only reason training doesn't work is that you've tried it in the past with no real structure, and it didn't work, and so therefore it becomes very easy to make a conclusion that it doesn't. Right. You know, it's an interesting dichotomy in our company because we'll get phone calls like this is I had this like epiphany 7 years later. Wow, that's interesting. We get salespeople calling every single day. Hey, I need help. What should I do in this situation? Here's my challenge, from all different industries. And we'll say, hey, what does your company do for training? Well, we don't do any training. Okay. Right. Who's in charge over there? We'll reach out to them. We'll show them our program. Maybe they'll embrace it. Nah, man, they'll never go for that. Okay, well, if they did, who would we want to talk to? We work the sales, we get the information, right? But again, the salesman's like, they'll never go for it. Right. We find out who leadership is. We get leadership on the phone and we say, hey, we want to show you this program. You know what they say? Our salespeople would never go for it.
Yeah. Wow.
You're like, well, who's right?
Right. Right. Who's running the show?
Right. It's just interesting. It's like salespeople are afraid that management won't do it. Management's afraid salespeople won't do it. But when you take a look at our program, when you pull the layers back, over 44 million lessons delivered since after 2012 when we started tracking it.
I think it's
44 million times a salesman or a manager's logged into our training and clicked the button that said, solve my problem.
Got to get people committed. You got to get people across the board committed. I remember when I was doing a sale at the Penske Group, and they were doing Alan Ram's phone training. You know, this is back 2009, I believe.
God bless him.
Yeah, he was an awesome dude. I got to meet him one time, but the thing was, this dealer group, the dealership and the little, there were like 6 Penske stores all on this block, and they were dead set on these guys sitting in this room and banging this stuff out every day, you know. And I wanted to just look at his training, and the general manager, who's now the regional vice president of that area for Penske, he says, yeah, man, you can do it, but you got to complete it 100%. Right? Because I just wanted to look at it and see what it was all about. This is back. I hadn't had any of that training yet. And I'm like, I'm going to be here for like 4 days, 5 days. You know, I'm going to complete all this training. He's like, look, man, the only way I'm going to let you start it is if you finish it. And it was, yeah. So they were dead seriously committed, though. on everybody being dedicated. And like they had these shifts, but every day there was training and there was hands-on training too, though, within the organization. Like they're working deals together side by side, showing why you say this way, taking calls together. You know, there were so many managers in there, it was unreal. But they were doing the deal. You know, it was something that's very, very rare to see a store operate like that, where you have that much hands-on help. I mean, so you have to have multiple resources. You have to have books. You have to have training guides. You have to have online. You have to have YouTube. You have to have everything that there can possibly be, because it takes that much. Right. You know, it really does, to get there and to be able to train everybody in your organization, everybody in your group. You've got to constantly be on it.
Well, without giving the secret formula, the 4 steps away,
sure.
I'll tell you this, is that if you, from a dealership standpoint, if a car dealer can embrace their training process the exact same way an athletic team embraces preparing for a game. In a dealership, it's game day every day.
Right.
But if you're a coach of a football team, for example, there's some things that we do as a team, and there's some things that we do as individual players on that team to prepare for the same game, right? So if we're going to learn a play as a group, we're going to gather up in a locker room. This is a sales meeting. We're going to learn the play. The coach is going to write the X's and the O's on the board. We're going to discuss it. We're going to make sure the players can repeat the play back to us, so everybody knows or has the information of the play. Then we're going to go out in the field and we're going to practice the play so we know it.
Right.
Just because you've got the data doesn't mean you know it. You have to practice it.
Information is not knowledge.
Yeah, that's right.
Information is not knowledge.
Right. So, and that's an amazing video that Grant put up just a couple of weeks ago. So, but like you have to practice it so you know it, and you don't. It's unconscious competence where you're able to execute without thought.
Oh, wait a minute now. You know where that came from?
It goes. Asimov gets credit for it, but it goes back to somebody else. But what's important though is that, like, if you get caught thinking on the athletic field or in a boxing ring,
too late.
You're toast.
Too late. You're ran over. Too late. Yeah. Same thing. I was telling these salespeople the same thing today. You know, you got to be enthusiastic, but you can't. If I have to stop and think about, like, if I have to pause and break from what we're engaged with so that I can figure out what to say next, it's over. It's gone. Doesn't matter what I say, because you lost the flow. You know what I mean? There has to be, right. And the only way you get that is through practice. That's the only way you get that. You know, so you just keep hammering, and eventually it's a dance, you know, where you can feel just the slightest little difference, you know?
Yeah, power prediction, man. You don't go where the puck is, you go where it's going to be.
100%. Gretzky.
Yeah.
This has been awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we going, 90 minutes? We're almost competing with the Joe Rogan podcast right now.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right. You got an end note?
Yeah, so of course I'll throw in a call to action. So if you're a dealer or a salesperson and you don't have Cardone on demand in your store and you want to learn more about this 4 steps for increasing sales in your dealership, because that's the purpose of sales training. It's not because it's a good idea. It's not because they said it should be done. It's to pick up more deals. It's to sell more product, period. If your sales training is not increasing your sales, it's a waste of time and money. So if you're tired of that, or you want to see how we do it, reach out to me at any time. I'm at 310-777-0352 or just david@grantcardone.com. I'll hook you up with 7 days free access to the program. I'll go over every possible cost option known to man. I'll show you exactly what the 4 steps are. And hey, don't tell Grant I said this, but if you implement the 4 steps without doing business with us, you'll still increase your sales.
There you go. All right, so CardoneOnDemand.com. I got that posted up there.
Yeah, or .info goes back to me.
Okay, but now it says yeah, it's gone. All right, so .info. You guys got it.
CardoneOnDemand.info is my landing page for that platform.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything any viewers want us to touch on before we close this out?
Thanks for all the participation, everybody. It's great having you.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Aster, Melissa, thank you so much. Time kills deals. Amen to that.
Yeah, 100%.
Do that. Take time out of a car deal.
Yeah, it's something the way that that's one thing that could have made the list. That would have been number 4 for me, was the time it takes to deliver a car. From the time they make the decision to the time they're delivered, it's not the desire part. It's when they make the decision already. When they make the decision, they should be able to pull the trigger in less than a half hour. Half hour, I mean, I understand it's difficult and there's a lot of regulation paper. You know, I get it. But man, we've got 2-3 hours is just unacceptable. It is unacceptable. Should never happen 2-3 hour deliveries. And I've been in a bunch. I've been in the dealership at 3:30 in the morning when Reynolds and Reynolds shuts down to clean. You know what I mean? Delivering cars at 3:30 in the morning. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
No, if you can get a buyer in and out in 90 minutes or less,
that's good. That's good. I mean, but it should not. There's no way it should be 3 hours, 2 hours. I don't like that.
No, but I'm talking about pulling into the dealership and then leaving with the car in 90 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. That's really short, man.
Right?
Yeah, I guess it happens that way, but
we love asking that question to dealers, though. Does your advertising match the experience, right? Does what you put out there match what actually happens in the store? And what if you put yourself on the condition 90-minute car deal and then you were able to fulfill that? What if you had a process to do that, right? And you can literally tell somebody, I will get you in and out of here in 90 minutes less, and then you actually deliver on that promise. That's huge.
Yeah, that is big. That is big. You'd get a lot of people too that would patronize your business just because that is for sure the number one complaint.
Right.
That is the number one complaint.
Buyer down, speed them up. And what I mean by that, I'm getting into some deep stuff right now. What I mean by that is that if you market that, I'll get you in and out in 90 minutes, right? They call up and they say, hey, how do we do that? Great. I'm going to text you all the information. I'm going to send you links, and you send them all the stuff so we can get them pre-approved, right? Pre-appraisal. We need all this information, and we'll put it all together for you. So by the time you get here, you're in and you're out. And they say, I'm not too comfortable filling out a credit app on the internet. Okay, great. Well, when can you be here? And you literally just slowed them down by speeding them up.
You gained control by giving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. All right, guys. David, sir, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Man, a lot of fun with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Bye.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Cool, man.